not to weaken this policy, and there were specific questions raised, and definitely our intention is not to do so at the expense of poorer regions or poorer member states. So what we need speak here is indeed reinforcement of cohesion policy. Questions on flexibility beyond 2020. Something we must be very clear that in 2020 we will not be able to have business as usual programming of EU funds, because if we were doing this, money will not be flowing to our economies. This is something we cannot afford. Therefore, we work already now, in a sense, we work on a programming and on ad hoc solution to ensure that as of 2021, money can actually flow to the real economy. There was a question, are we looking for some bridging solutions between two MFF? The answer is no. Our intention is that we need to have MFF in place as of January 1st, 2021. And we shouldn't now go for some kind of intermediary one-year solutions or something, because especially as regards multi-annual programs, it may prove very problematic. And in any case, we need the necessary scale, necessary ambition to respond to this crisis. So questions were asked when we are coming with a new proposal. Indeed, it's next week, so it's not before the Council of 23rd of April. It's next week, but certainly this exchange of views in the Council also will be important in this regard. Questions were raised on the role of Green Deal in the recovery. Let me reassure that the goals of the Green Deal remain valid, including climate neutrality by 2050, Paris goals. But at the same time, it's also important that we concentrate on, so to say, bread and butter issues that will be in post-crisis context. We will need to ensure that people have jobs, people have incomes, that we have inclusive growth. And this will be very much part of our focus. Then questions were raised on rule of law. As regards rule of law, it's already in a Commission's proposal of 2018, where we propose to have a link between member states' observance of rule of law and access to EU funding, and this proposal remains very much there. And in different variations, questions on Corona bonds, recovery fund. So the basic idea is that we want to reinforce the financing capacity of the next MFF beyond what we have now. For this, we would be setting up this additional fund, and indeed it would be financed from borrowings in the markets. How exactly we call that borrowing, of course, it remains to be discussed. But the concept in any case is there, that we use this borrowing to finance our post-crisis response, to finance our recovery. So for a fact of limitations of time, I'm not able to go in details through many other questions raised. But once again, thank you very much for this exchange of views. And from Commission side, we remain to be open to be engaging with European Parliament, including REGI committee. Thank you for your support once again on approving CRII and CRRI Plus in record short time. And rest assured that cohesion will continue to play an important role also at the stage of economic recovery. Thank you.
Mrs. Feraira, could you please press the speak button? Hello? Hello?
Yes, now
Hello?
we can hear.
Yes, okay. Okay. Thank you. I will try also to answer some of the remaining questions. There was a specific question that was already partially replied by the Vice President Dombrovskis on the rule of law. I think there was another part of the question that related to the amount of money. I would just like to underline that the money was not transferred from one member state to another member state in this emergency situation. So the money that was allocated to the new priorities was the one that could be reprogrammed inside the national envelopes with all the flexibility that was established specifically to address the crisis. So the amount of money is the amount that is available within each member state's envelope. In relation to the Court of Auditors, there was another very, very clear question and a very important one. We have produced the changes in the framework of legislation with support of the co-legislators, and now what happens is that the reporting is the one that the new situation requires. Nevertheless, the Commission is in touch with the Court of Auditors so that, in fact, we keep enough transparency and enough accountability in relation, namely, to the European Parliament, but also to the Court of Auditors in this very exceptional use of the funds. In what concerns the need to introduce some of the lessons learned in the process and in the next MFF. Of course, a reinforced MFF is needed. I would really underline that the absolute amounts of money are important, given the fact that the GNI and the GDP will be reduced due to the crisis. And cohesion has got to be there, and also Vice President Dombrovskis just mentioned that it had to be there. It will also have to be there in the exceptional and new instrument that the Commission is working on, this recovery fund. It has got to have this framework of fostering convergence, even if it is done through specific sectoral policies objectives. Now, what are some of the elements on which we can learn from this experience? Of course, one possible exercise that we could do, trying to answer this question of which are the regions that were and countries that were more affected in their economic performance by this crisis. We could really work out this midterm review once we have new and fresh statistical data, and keep it within the MFF framework as we have done in the present framework, but with this extra concern that having updated information on what effectively was the impact in the development of different regions coming from this crisis, and reallocate this medium-term money. Also, I think it's possible that we should reconsider flexibility between funds to another level. In what concerns flexibility between regions, I think the proposal that is already in the present proposal for CPR already accommodates an enlarged flexibility between developed regions and less developed regions, and also an enlarged framework for transfers between weaker regions to more developed regions. So I think we should revisit and look to what is already in the next phases as a proposal, because it seems to be quite all right, because we have got to go back to the basic purposes of cohesion funds and cohesion policy. In what concerns keeping the 100% for more projects or forever, I don't think it makes sense. Because, of course, not even the amount of money that we have can really accommodate such an effort. This is an exceptional effort, and one of the reasons why it took some time is to be sure that the available money that we have in the budget can be can accept and can give the response to this extra demand. There are elements that should be put in the agenda. I think I already mentioned the reform agenda. I think the BICC might be revisited, and to be revisited has got to be through the Parliament addressing this capacity. In fact, there are several ways in which it can be revisited, in particular the total amount and eventual concentration on those countries and that cannot really make the nice recovery together with a reformative agenda. This new agenda, I think, should be particularly careful and reinforce the digital and the greening, because the crisis that we are facing is a crisis that may occur in the future due to environmental reasons. I hope not, but it is really a risk. This doesn't mean that we should not revisit in specific management of projects how much we can accommodate the requirements in relation to the specific engagement in each specific region for the greening and for digital. But the framework has got to be compatible with these long-term and medium-term targets of the European agenda. So my personal opinion, I think that it is possible and advisable that we look very carefully to what we have at this moment in the Parliament, the CPR, and that we fine-tune and organize very specific amendments to this framework so that we have in the 1st of January of 21 a new MFF running with the front-loading of certain financial instruments that we can really have the capacity to front-load, and that we leave for an extra phase kind of revisiting and managing a medium-term adjustment, and at the same time that we address very carefully the other instrument, the kind of recovery plan that already the Vice President Dombrovskis mentioned very clearly, and that we embody also this new instrument with a very strong DNA of combating divergence inside the European Union, and in particular inside the common currency, because really it will be very difficult to hold on if we really don't compensate for these imbalances that will come out from this emergency period. So thank you very much for having created this opportunity. I took good note of all the questions. I cannot answer all of them, but I tried to address the ones that were more commonly addressed by the honourable members, and of course we'll be working in permanence with you, with European Parliament, and with all the coordinators and all the members as usual. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. I want to thanks a lot the Vice President Dombrovskis and Commissioner Feraha. And I think we have a view, a very clear view about the intention of the Commission. It was a very good meeting, an important meeting, and I thank you a lot for your disponibility. I want to thank all interpreters and the staff for this meeting. And before the end, I want to inform you that our report about the vote is adopt. 43 were in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstentions. And Amendment 36 and 185 of Mr. Bijou is adopted. And amendment of Carl Valles and Buddha and Hope are adopted too. We will send you the details by mails. I thank all members for this meeting. I'm really sorry not all members could speak, but it was very difficult, and I hope you are well, and I see we will soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you very much.